Hey, deep divers and truth seekers. What if a hidden structure woven into the very fabric of creation was encoded into the Bible from the very first verse? What if the blueprint of all reality could be found within the tabernacle, the high priest garments, and even within your own DNA? Throughout Scripture, we find a recurring theme, the number 4, representing divine order, structure, in the fundamental design of the universe. But even more mysterious is how these fours are often woven together into a sevenfold structure, mirroring the divine design of Genesis 1:1, the Menorah, the musical scale, and even the construction of the sacred threads used in the high priest garments. And if you stick around until the end, you're going to see this pattern and how it ties into everything from Genesis 1:1 to the very strands of DNA that make you who you are. So before we dive in, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because this is just the beginning of an incredible journey into the hidden patterns of Scripture. Let's now take a look at the 4 fabrics of the tabernacle and their sevenfold construction. In Exodus chapter 26, we see that the tabernacle was constructed using 4 specific types of fabrics. These same fabrics were also used in the garments of the high priest that went or his ephod, that the breastplate or koshen was on top of. Now these 4 fabrics consist of linen, which is going to be shesh in Hebrew, blue, which is going to be techelet. Some of you might be familiar with this word. Techelet is the blue color that the tzitzit mentioned in the book of Numbers chapter 15 are dyed. And I'm trying to think of what else, but a lot of you might know about it from that. The color purple, which is going to be argamon, and the color scarlet, which is tolaat shani. Interestingly, shani, that also means 2, as in numerically the number 2, and linen, which is shesh, also is the word for the number 6, which I also find interesting as well. But these fabrics were not merely placed side by side. They were intricately woven together with gold threads. Even more fascinating, in rabbinic literature, it describes that these 4 fabrics were each constructed as a sevenfold cord. Each single strand of fabric was combined with 6 fibers, and these 6 fibers were then combined with 1 strand of gold for a total of 7. This mirrors the sevenfold structure seen throughout Scripture. The 7 words of Genesis 1:1, the 7 branches of the Menorah, the 7 spirits of God in Isaiah 11:2 and in Revelation, and the 7 days of creation, of course. Just as the 4 strings were woven into a sevenfold structure, we will see how 4s and 7s intertwine throughout the biblical narrative. Let's talk a little bit about the 28 strand pattern in the Bible. In Exodus chapter 26 verse 2, the curtains of the tabernacle were designed to measure 28 cubits. It says that the length of each curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits. All the curtains shall have the same measurement. And so when we look at that, these measurements, these cubits that are delineated into 28 cubits and 4 cubits, obviously, or I think it does for me, it causes me to focus upon the number 7, the elephant in the room there. And it's no accident, because Genesis 1:1 also contains 7 words and 28 letters, mirroring the divine pattern in the tabernacle. We also see the 4th word, the word et, as the centerpiece of this verse, right in the very middle of Genesis 1:1. Of course, the et is comprised of the first letters and the last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the aleph and the tav, representing all of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Very much like when we refer to Alpha and Omega, or from A to Z. It's telling us about a divine structure of energies in which there's 22 of them. So again, In Genesis 1:1, we have 7 words and 22 letters with the et, the Aleph Tav, right in the center as the 4th word, constructed like the curtains and the ephod of the Kohen HaGadol, the high priest. Genesis 1:1 encodes the 4 fundamental components of this physical universe. I'm not going to be able to talk about all of them or even reference all of these connections, but I'll hit on a few of them. So if we look at Genesis 1:1, we see Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. In the beginning, that's time. God created, that's energy. The heavens and the earth, that's space and matter. So in verse 1 of the Bible, we have reference to these 4 different things: time, energy, space, and matter. These 4 categories align with other 4s found throughout the scripture and creation. Number 1, the tetragrammaton, that many of you are probably aware of. The tetragrammaton is the 4-letter Hebrew name of God, consisting of the Yud, the He, the Vav, and the He. And so it gives us insight into how important, a little bit, we start to realize, I think, how important the name of God is into the entire fabric of creation. This also ties into the 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. And unlike in Western culture, Hebraically and biblically, all of these directions point to 4 distinct energies. And so when in the Bible, when it talks about that God planted a garden eastward, Kedem, in Eden, it's not just giving us some superfluous information. East is a particular energy, in contrast to the other directions, or if it tells us about evil coming from the north, or promotion, or different things like that. There's different themes and concepts that are associated with each of these 4 directions. The 4 fundamental forces in physics, which are gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear force. The 4 basic elements of life: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. All these things connect to each other. The 4 nucleotides of DNA that we're going to talk a little bit more about later: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. Interestingly, in case I forget to mention it later, the adenine and thymine, the A and the T, much like the Aleph and the Tav, always connect to each other, and the other ones as well. The 4 classical elements: earth, water, fire, and air. The 4 rivers of Eden that are mentioned early on in the book of Genesis: the Pishon, the Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates. The 4 angels at the 4 corners of the earth in Revelation chapter 7, verse 1. The 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The 4 living creatures mentioned in Ezekiel's vision and in Revelation: the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle. By the way, these are all of these themes are going to tie together. These 4-faced creatures are going to connect to the 4 Gospels, and the 4 Gospels will also connect to the 4 head tribes of Israel. All 12 tribes of Israel were divided into 4 sections, and so you would have each of these 4 sections or quarters under the headship of one of these tribes. And so it's going to correspond with Judah, Reuben, Ephraim, and Dan. And so that is also going, that was the ensigns. If you do some research into the ensigns, the flags of these head tribes, each of the tribes had their individual banner, but they also had these 4 banners that are going to connect with the Gospels, and they're going to connect with the cherubim in Ezekiel, these 4-faced creatures and such. And so all of this stuff just continues to connect back into itself. In Kabbalistic thought, there are 4 worlds Atzilut, Berea, Yetzirah, and Asiya. So we're in the lowest world, the most dense and the most material, the most concrete, if you will. But even as we see with quantum physics and many of the things that science has showed us in modern history, that what looks like solid is comprised of things that are not solid. And so there's different dimensions before we end up with this more concrete time-space, three-dimensional dimension that we're abiding in now. The 4 levels of biblical interpretation. So we have Peshat, which is the simple, more literal level, as in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So we see who, what, when, where, and maybe even how, and possibly even begin to explore why a little bit. Remez, that's going to be the second level, which means hint or allusion. And so like one verse or one passage will allude to other passages and begin to connect the dots for us. The third level is the drash level, which is the more allegorical, metaphorical, homiletical level. And then finally, the fourth level is the sod level, or the mystical level. And so when Paul says, behold, I show you a mystery, behold, I show you a sod, he's pointing us to a very deep understanding of these passages that he's going to begin to elucidate more for us. The 4 kingdoms in the book of Daniel, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, that were symbolized by 4 metals, gold, silver, bronze, and iron. We have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, as it's often referred to, white, red, black, and pale, from Revelation chapter 6. We have the 4 soils, or the 4 conditions of the soul, discussed by Yeshua in the Gospels. I believe that's in the Gospel of Mark, maybe. The path, the rocky, the thorny, and the good soil. And we have the 4 classical personality types: choleric, sanguine, melancholic, and phlegmatic. And so often when the Bible, or even in other texts, discusses different types of people, it's broken down into 4 major categories, and then maybe from that subcategories, just like again with the 4 head tribes of Israel. Let's talk a little bit about DNA and the gold that was woven into with the 4 fabrics in the designs of the clothing of the high priest, as well as the curtains of the tabernacle. DNA is held together by hydrogen bonds, often depicted in gold. This is exactly what we see in the high priest's garments. The 4 fabrics, which are the white linen, the blue, the techelet, argamon, the purple, and the chenille of the scarlet, they're all woven together, but they're bound together with gold threads, just as the 4 nucleotides of DNA are bound together by hydrogen bonds. This stuff blows my mind. It's cool when these things begin to click. Now, a lot of these things I've thought about over the years, quite a bit actually, but some of this has just come together in the last few days as I began to think about and ponder these fabrics in the fabric of reality, in the fabric of creation, and I began to think about this in conjunction with DNA and all of these other things. And so I began to think about this morning actually amino acids, and I started doing some research and watching some videos, and there was a video I watched, and the gentleman in the video said that he said there's about 20 amino acids, and I thought, well, there is or there isn't. I want to know the exact number, and I thought it's got to be 22, and so I began doing some more research, and there are actually 20 standard types of amino acids that serve as the building blocks of proteins in most living organisms. Additionally, though, there are 2 rare amino acids which are incorporated into proteins in some organisms that brings the totality of this to 22 amino acids. So that really blew my mind, because obviously a lot of dots begin to be connected now. Just as the Hebrew alphabet is the foundation of divine communication, the amino acids are the foundation of biological life. The four nucleotide bases, A, T, and C, and G, act like the four fabrics of the tabernacle, binding them in precise sequences to create life, or the name of God, and all of these other patterns that I've been showing. From the four fabrics of the tabernacle to the four forces of physics, from the four nucleotides of DNA to the four living creatures of Ezekiel's vision, the four-letter name of God, the four Gospels, the four seasons, the four directions, we've uncovered a deep structural pattern woven throughout Scripture, nature, and even the fabric of reality itself. The tabernacle was not just a dwelling place. It was a microcosm of creation, a sacred model reflecting the very order of the universe. Its four fabrics, woven with gold, mirror the four-letter name of God, the four elements of life, and even the four nucleotides that form the genetic code of all living beings. And just as the tabernacle's threads were bound together in a sevenfold cord, we see the same divine structure in Genesis 1:1, the Menorah, the musical scale, and the 7-day creation week pattern. Even the 22 amino acids used in life's building blocks align with the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the foundation of divine communication. So is it merely coincidence, or is it a signature, a divine fingerprint embedded in the very essence of existence? If this resonated with you, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any future deep dives into the mysteries of Scripture, science, and symbolism. And if you like insights like this, and if you have insights and questions, drop them in the comments. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Until next time, keep seeking the hidden patterns in Scripture and in creation, because the more we look, the more we see that everything truly is connected.
Hey, if you like this video, please click like and subscribe to be notified whenever we release new content, and to help other people find us out there on the vast plains of YouTube land. If you have a question or a topic you'd like for us to do a video about, just leave it in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Later, y'all.